That son of a gun stopped. I went over the front, of course, and I'm grabbing onto his neck. I'm looking at his neck at a cactus or horse. I'm like, this is not enjoyable, right? I'm not a good horse rider. Hi, I'm Michael Joy. This is another episode of Absolute Joy. We have the long, short stories. We are still in my yesteryears of growing up in Arizona. While I was there, it didn't feel like fun. Today, in homage of my sister, she was an equestrian badass. The scene is this: Arizona, circa 1976. We were living in Paradise Valley. My dad was a physician and he was just starting to establish his career. He bought his first successful home. There was a dilapidated horse stable out back and the house was on a 1-acre land. Amy was horse crazy ever since she was little, you know, like plastic horses on the shelf, all rode up like soldiers, posters of horses. My dad, either to appease her or to shut her up, we don't know to this day, got her a horse. Prior to that, it required that he repair the stable. We called it, it was basically a shack. It had a shack with a hitching post. It looked like a Western gunfight corral place. He set up a little riding arena for her, which was just a nice soft patch of dirt. Anyways, now she could have a horse. Her first horse, Amigo, was pretty cool. My dad didn't race to buy her a horse. I mean, they're expensive. She's a kid. She was maybe 12. But when we moved into this neighborhood, there were other equestrian type people around and they had these kind of, we wouldn't call it a ranch, but they had a couple acres and they had horses and barns and things like this. In the desert, barns are different. They're basically just shaded and everybody still sweats it out. And my sister, to her credit, she went around to every house that had a stable looking for work just so she could be around horses. And what was work? She basically said, can I shovel the horse shit out of the stall for 50 cents a stall? And so she would go over to all these stables and then she saved up all this money and she was around horses and it was her happy place. Hardworking kid, right? A, courageous to go to all these places. B, not easy work in Arizona summer, shoveling hot poop. Right? Third is she was the lowest on the totem pole at any one of those sort of ranch environments. The shit shovelers doesn't rank. But she got to ride horses, pet horses, brush horses, clean saddles, take care of tacks. She was in her happy place. So I think my dad clearly saw that she was dedicated to this. That's when he decided to get her this Appaloosa named Amigo. And Amigo, that was her best friend. You know, she was out of the house, dawn to dusk with Amigo. And over the years, she picked up a couple other horses. Once you have one, another one's not that much more. I mean, you feed, vet, it's not inexpensive. She certainly was capable of taking care of many horses. And so Sonny was a baby when she got him, so she raised him. But Sonny was sassy. Amigo was gentle and he was already an old guy and he was kind of a trail rider. And my dad got her because he knew that Amigo would not throw my sister. Sonny, different story. He was kind of like mischievous, you know. If you were bending over to do something, he might pull your hair or something like that. She went off into this long career of horse stuff. Her first husband was a horse trainer. He's a bit of a badass cowboy guy, and they had a photography business, which I merged into. They traveled the country photographing hunters and jumpers and stuff like this. So now I'm grown up and after college, and I wasn't home in Arizona much, and she says, why don't I take you for a trail ride? With who? And she had other horses by this point. She said, well, Sonny and Dante. And she's like, all right, Dante. Sonny was an old man by now, right? He's supposed to be not so bad. So I'm like, yeah, I'd never been on a horse ride, and we had horses, but I never rode them. Basically, we were living in a different area where there were washes and you could go around the mountains and stuff. It was pretty remarkable. So I got on Sonny. I was not prepared for a horse ride. Basically, Sonny was kind of following Dante, and my sister and I were bullshitting and talking. It was a beautiful day, and we were in this wash. And a wash in Arizona is basically a sandy riverbed. It's a dry riverbed, and there's usually some sort of vertical incline on the sides. And it's when the water, floods in the desert don't happen because the water's in the desert. Floods in the desert happen because of a storm in the mountains, X 50, 60, 80 miles away. And that's why you can have a flash flood in the middle of the day when there's no rain. We weren't worried about water, but I was all of a sudden starting to be worried about cactus because Sonny, he was not in the mood to be ridden that day. And he had a poor sorry ass sap on his back, me, who didn't know how to handle him. And Amy's like, pull the reins, get him up, get him up. And he would sort of walk with his head low and he'd eat the grass or whatever, the bush. But he started just dragging me into the trees. And he would just like sort of walk me into the trees. So I would kind of brush against it. And she's like, don't let him do that. Don't let him do that. Yank him there. And she's like, don't let him walk. He's got too much time to think when he's walking. So she's like, get him to trot. Oh my God, this horse had options like an old car. He could trot like comfortably, like I'm at a show and I'm very proper, or he could trot like the bumpiest old man you have ever seen, like clunk, 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 clunk. And for whatever reason, he knew how to trot and create a rhythm where I began to bounce on his back. And I was like, Amy, what's happening? What's happening? And she's like, hold on, you know, just pull the reins. And so I pulled the reins and we're trotting. That son of a gun stopped. I went over the front, of course, and I'm grabbing onto his neck. I'm looking at his neck, at a cactus or horse. I'm like, this is not enjoyable, right? I'm not a good horse rider. And she's just peeing her pants. And she's like, oh my God. She comes over, she has words with Sonny, and she's like, let's try this again. We start in the middle of wash, walking like this, and Sonny begins to drift again. So I'm like, I've learned how to handle this. I am going to tell him to trot. I'm like, trot, Sonny. So he starts trotting in his bouncy way. I was in jeans. In the day, it was cool to wear boxer shorts. So don't horseback ride in boxers. I'm bouncing in the saddle. You get the point. Going down this thing, and I'm like, and, ooh, ah. Amy turns around and she sees me like above the tree line bouncing with this horse, and I'm laughing because it's so funny, but I don't know how to stop this horse. I don't know how to, I'm like, I stop, I get thrown off or whatever. She turns around and she just waits for me. She doesn't come get Sonny. She's just looking at me, cracking up. I think even Dante was laughing. And so she just waited long enough. She's like, all right, clearly that's enough. And then she stops Sonny. She's like, oh my God. And I'm like, I didn't know how to tell you, but I'm wearing boxers. I think we're done riding for the day. So we turned back, and this time she held the reins. So Sonny had to like walk with, you know, behind. So this is why I didn't horse ride very often with my sister. And at the time, when we were younger and I tried to horse ride, her horse would either step on me or something like this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this horse stuff. You got to try my motorcycle. And remember, I had the ATC. So she gets on the ATC and she starts, you know, I give her a lesson and she drives it straight into a wall. And you know what she said all the way into the wall? Ho, ho. And I'm like, see, it does not translate. My motorcycle's front wheel was bent in, and luckily she didn't hit the wall, but we both had trouble in each other's wheelhouse. I was no good on horses. She was pretty bad on motorcycles, so we ended up staying in our own lane. So the moral of the story is obvious. If you're gonna horse ride, not only should you wear a hat and sunblock and have really heavy jeans on for the cactus, but don't wear boxers.